Good morning, everyone. We're just going to give everyone a couple of more seconds to enter into the room, and then we will go ahead and get started for this morning's webinar. Okay, I can tell our numbers have died down, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chanel Jackson, and I am the Executive Director of Families Helping Families Region 7. Just to tell you a little bit about Families Helping Families Region 7, we are located in Northwest Louisiana, and we are one of 10 nonprofit family resource centers in the Families Helping Families network of centers. We are here to provide support to parents of children, youth, and adults with disabilities and special health care needs. We also do this through individual assistance, information sharing, outreach, and trainings. We invite you to visit our website at www.fhfregion7.com. Click on the events tab and you will get a list of all our upcoming events, and you can also register for events there. This morning, I want to welcome you to today's training on the Louisiana Youth Leadership Forum. The Louisiana Youth Leadership Forum is an exciting program focused on advocacy and leadership for youth with disabilities. Our presenter today, Lillian DeJean, will present on how the program teaches self-determination and disability culture to encourage youth with disabilities to become active participants in their own futures and active participants in system change advocacy, and also how to get involved in this wonderful program. So Lillian, I am going to turn it over to you and let you get started on today's training.
Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be speaking with you guys today. So my name is Lillian DeJean. I am the Louisiana Youth Leadership Forum Coordinator, and I'm really excited to be talking to you today about what YLF is, how it came into existence, how it impacts our community today, and how you can get involved as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see this?
Yes, we can see it.
So LAYLF, we call Louisiana Youth Leadership Forum, LAYLF for short, is essentially a residential summer program or a camp for youth with disabilities. My PowerPoint will not let me. There we go. So I just want to start with talking a little bit about what YLF is and how it functions. And so with YLF, we really focus on empowerment, leadership, self-determination, and community building. Our organizational home is Families Helping Families of Acadiana. So whenever I was invited to speak here today, it felt like, returning home in a sense, since you guys are also an FHF center. Our two main funders are the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council and the Louisiana Department of Education. So YLF has a pretty long history.
Lillian, the PowerPoint has disappeared, so we can't see it.
Are we okay?
Yes.
I can see it now. Thank you. So YLF has a fairly long history here. It actually ran from 2000 to 2005 on LSU's campus, and we averaged about 30 campers per year. The funding back then was a little bit more diversified than it is now. We had a really large group of funders involved in the functioning of YLF, but it eventually ended here around 2005 due to Hurricane Katrina and funding changes under Jindal. There was an attempt made to restart the program in 2008. We figured this out via old DDC minutes from the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council, but it ultimately wasn't successful. So YLF actually disappeared for about 17 years as a result of it ending after Hurricane Katrina and the failure to restart it in 2008. So how did we get back here today? YLF was brought back officially in Louisiana last year in 2023, but there was a lot of planning that had to be put into place before it could be functioning back again. So I served on the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council and noticed that there was a broad lack of opportunities for youth self-advocates. And so Nicole Flores and I really started looking into options for youth to learn how to advocate for themselves. And we learned about this thing called YLFs. And so over 30 other states have a YLF. And then we also learned that we used to have a YLF. For a very long time, we didn't really have any history on our YLF. Everything that we knew about our YLF actually came from word of mouth for several years. And so Nicole Flores and I really started looking into how to implement this into our state again. And so eventually the Youth Leadership Ad Hoc Committee was formed under the DD Council, and it ran for about a year. And we really worked to recreate a foundation for YLF and what it'll look like here. Because over 30 other states have YLFs, we were able to lean heavily on that network of knowledge. They were very generous in their knowledge about how camp functions, how to instill these values into our youth, and how to get ours rocking and rolling again. The really amazing thing about YLFs is that while there are some core values of leadership, of self-determination, of disability pride, of really choosing your own life as a person with a disability, the framework of YLF allows for each state to tailor it to their needs and strengths. And so there are some YLFs that really focus, for example, on post-secondary education, because those states may have huge strengths in their post-secondary networks. And there's some states that may focus more on disability history. For us, we decided to really focus on advocacy and legislative advocacy. And so I'll talk a little bit more later about how we implement concepts of legislative advocacy and systems change advocacy as a factor in our YLF, since that is one of our state strengths with our LACAN network and our DD Council network. So this ad hoc committee functioned for about a year, and we really just hashed out the very basics of what YLF would look like, what our funding sources would be, right down to what words we would use for our campers. And so it was this amazing group of predominantly self-advocates, some professionals, some parents, and who really just believed in the core values of YLF and wanted to bring it back. So eventually it was brought back through this committee and then handed off to Families Helping Families of Acadiana to execute. So today YLF looks a little bit different than it did back in the early 2000s. Like I mentioned earlier, we returned in 2023, but we returned to UL's campus. And last year we hosted 12 campers for 3 days. And there were many moments during camp where my staff looked at each other and said, "We're doing it. We're really doing it." Because it was so exciting and we knew what a big deal this was for our community. And we've been really lucky to have a lot of community support. And so because of that support, we've been able to expand this next year. And so we'll be taking an additional 2 campers, and we're extending it to 4 days instead, for a total of 14 campers for 4 days. So you may notice that our camp today is a little bit smaller than it was in the early 2000s. And really, by and large, when you look at other YLFs, we are one of the smaller YLFs. But the reasoning for this is we really want to focus on, building out camp and building out camp in a really sustainable way. We don't want another hurricane to come along and for YLF to end. We don't want, we understand that life happens, but we want to make sure that camp can continue, even though life does happen, because we understand what an important asset this is to the community. So while we're planning camp each year, we're also looking at long-term planning and how to make sure that camp stays camp. I often get asked about the age range for camp, and we don't actually have an age range. Instead, we go by grade range. And so we take 10th, 11th, and 12th graders with disabilities. And the reasoning for this is if someone, for example, is in 12th grade and 20 years old due to disability reasons, we want to be flexible based on our camper and we want to be accommodating. And so we have that grade range instead of a hard age range instead. The really interesting thing about YLF is it actually is meant to be a stepping stone into partners in policymaking. It's supposed to be your pre-partners, partners. And so whenever we were first advocating for YLF, we really recognized it as a tool to cultivate more self-advocates in our community because we understand how important the voices of self-advocates are. But first you have to learn how to advocate, right? And YLF is the perfect opportunity to do that. It's meant to be this one-stop shop for how to be an adult with a disability. I know personally in my journey as a person with a disability, it was imperative that I find community because no one really teaches you how to live your best life as a disabled person. Because that looks different for everyone, and that's going to look different whenever you have a disability. Not that that's bad, not that that's better, it just is. And so to have a place where you can go and learn how to advocate for yourself, find community, and see adults like you living their best lives, that's what YLF is really about. So YLF can really be broken up into three core components. One, self-advocacy and pride, or really advocating for yourself. Two, disability history and legislative advocacy, or really how our community advocates for others on a systems change level. And also healthy relationships and community building, which is really about, engaging in our disability culture and engaging in our community as well. I'm going to have to apologize to you guys. I'm sure you hear the crying. It is my cat. I tried to placate her with twist ties earlier, and I guess it was unsuccessful. So she loves Zoom, so my apologies. So moving on to some of our values centered in YLF. One of the first things that we really try to emphasize is how natural disability is and how disability is a natural part of human diversity. I had the opportunity alongside with Nicole DeJean, Families Helping Families. She is the grant writer and technical writer for our agency. We traveled to Oklahoma's YLF the year before ours in 2022. And so we were able to really get tangible hands-on experience for how a YLF runs. And that was pivotal for us. And one of the things that we noticed was how natural accommodations were within that setting. Accommodations weren't a special thing. They weren't something that necessarily stood out or had to be really specially implemented. And the reasoning for that is because we had predominantly a group of people with disabilities. And so it created this really unique disability culture that you don't necessarily find anywhere else. And so accommodations became a natural part of the social fabric of their YLF. So it was really neat because we saw, your more physically capable delegates starting to hold open doors for our delegates or staff members in wheelchairs. We started seeing delegates helping less verbal campers communicate. And it's like everyone started to become attuned to each other's needs um, because of how naturalized disability became, because everyone had needs. And that was okay. And it was simply another opportunity for everyone to support each other as a community. And I think that is one of the things that makes YLAF so special, because it really is that opportunity to bring our community together and understand how we can better support each other through our journeys. So we really believe that diversity is really valuable and powerful, because it gives us that opportunity to understand each other and support each other better. YLF also really encourages pride in oneself wholly, um, because we believe in this cyclical cycle of empowerment where pride leads to empowerment and empowerment leads to self-determination. And the reasoning behind that is, if you're not confident in yourself, how then can you move forward confidently in your decisions and your advocacy? You have to have this foundation of confidence and pride to then be able to go and confidently project yourself to the world. And so we really want to encourage, disability culture at camp and really encourage our campers to be prideful in themselves so then they too can gain that confidence and be able to step into advocacy confidently. And one of the ways that we encourage this pride is having most of our staff and 100% of our speakers be people with disabilities. Um, this allows our campers to, at camp, actively see adults with disabilities living their best life, whatever that looks like for that individual, because we understand it looks different for everyone. But it's really important because our campers can then see, okay, it's possible for me to be successful with a disability. It's possible for me to blaze my own path as a person with a disability. It's possible for me to get married as a person with a disability. It it shows our campers how many options there are for their future. And whenever we talk about future planning at YLF, that's so important because when you're planning your future, you're going to be limited if you feel like you don't have any options, right? And so when we bring in peer mentors and we bring in adults with disabilities, it really is to show our campers that their options are pretty limitless. With the right accommodations, with the right supports, you have the opportunity to live a life of your choosing. And so that's a really beautiful part of YLF is we saw a lot of campers realize the possibilities for their future. We saw one young girl realize that it was possible for her to go to college. And it was a shock for her, but this really amazing, pivotal surprise for her, because it's like doors opened up for her future. So going back to those three core components that I talked about earlier, our first one is self-advocacy, and really about advocating for yourself. And so, like I mentioned just now, 100% of our speakers are people with disabilities. And generally, they're people with disabilities who are living a very empowered life, and whatever iteration that means to them. Um, we really prioritize having 100% of our speakers be people with disabilities because we really believe that people with disabilities are the best fits for speaking about what it's like to live with a disability and how to set that example for our youth. We also have a lot of discussions about how to be prideful in yourself as a person with a disability, because it's not something that you really necessarily get taught anywhere else as a young person, right? Especially whenever you live in a world where disability is judged, where disability is othered, where it's typically shameful. YLF is an environment where disability is embraced and it's viewed as a strength, it's viewed as normal, And it's viewed as simply a part of who you are. And so our speakers play a really pivotal part in that because they model that best life for a person with a disability and model that that does vary and it looks different. The other part about why I left teaching self-advocacy is that camp is often the first time our campers are away from home. This may be the first time they haven't slept at home. This may be the first extended period of time where they're away from mom and dad. And that's often scary, but it also provides a really awesome opportunity for them to learn how to advocate for themselves. And so when we implement our staff training, we really encourage our staff to be supports in self-advocacy. And so we really encourage our staff to then encourage our delegates to ask for what they need, to ask for what they want, so they can start learning those skills in a safe place where they will be supported, they will be heard, and whenever they ask for what they need, that's received. And also that support is just freely given within camp. So camp is just a really natural place for that self-advocacy journey to begin. And our staff really does a wonderful job of supporting our delegates through that process of learning. With that being said, we often do get asked about our staff to camper ratio, and we keep a 1-to-1 staff to camper ratio in addition to having 2 registered nurses 24 hours a day throughout the duration of camp. So we do ensure that everyone has the support that they need throughout their camp experience. Because while it is about learning to advocate for yourself, we also want everyone to be safe, supported, and have everything that they need. So we really just try to build a community around advocacy and supporting each other. Secondly, we also emphasize, our legislative advocacy and our systems change advocacy. Like I mentioned before, we recognize that that's a huge strength of our state. And so we really wanted to make sure that camp exposed our delegates to how to get involved in this. Because we understand that legislative advocacy can be scary sometimes. Systems change advocacy can feel very big and intangible, especially when you don't know where to start. And so YLF really aims to provide an opportunity in that starting place for our delegates. And so the way we do this is we take a trip to the Capitol. We board the bus from UL, travel the hour and a half together to the state capitol, and explore what that's like. And so this year we're planning to model our trip to the Capitol after a Lacan action alert. So we can really expose our delegates to what it looks like to be involved in our grassroots advocacy network. We will have a mock action alert where the night before we'll say, okay, we've got an email, we have an action alert, we're gonna head to the Capitol tomorrow so we can advocate on behalf of this bill. And so all of our campers will wear their yellow shirts to the Capitol, and we'll have a mock debate that is modeled after legislators debating bills. So our delegates can see what a yellow shirt day looks like and what engaging with the legislature may look like. It's a safe way to have a trial run for all that and to understand how the Capitol, how the legislature functions a little bit without necessarily have to dive completely in. The purpose of this trip really is to empower our campers with the knowledge that they can also be involved in the legislative process, even as youth. Or really, it's even more important for them to be involved because they're youth, because their voices are so important and they have this unique perspective that no one else really is going to have. And so really we want to give them the knowledge and the tools that they need to engage in our grassroots advocacy network, to respond to those action alerts, or to go out on their own and advocate for whatever cause they feel like they want to pursue. We really just want to provide those resources and empowerment. Lastly, we really focus on community building and relationships. Um, Part of engaging in disability culture is really having that opportunity to engage with your own community. We understand that, folks with disabilities are more likely to be isolated than their non-disabled peers. And so we really wanted and aimed to build a fairly tight-knit community at camp that would also extend beyond camp. So we have alumni events throughout the year. Our staff has an active group chat. I have heard that our campers have a secret group chat among them since camp. So our goal of building a tight-knit community was successful, obviously. But this is just legend. I don't know anything for sure. Um, and we really wanted to build this community so our delegates could have that network to lean on as they're learning how to adults with a disability. Um, I know personally for me, whenever I was transitioning into adulthood, and even still today, having resources and other people in the disability that you can call when you're a little bit lost, whenever you're a little bit confused, or just need out of the box ideas on how to, manage your equipment, at Walmart or at Costco. That's so important. And so we wanted YLAF to build that inherent community that our campers and even our staff could take beyond camp. We also host discussions on forming and maintaining relationships. So our delegates really have the tools that they need to engage healthily in community and relationships. We understand that sometimes disability can impact the way you socialize, whether that be due to the disability itself or due to access to community or activities outside the home. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were having discussions about what healthy relationships look like and how to engage with that. Um, so we have, for example, a panel on dating and relationships, where we bring in different people with disabilities in different stages of relationships. So you can see a photo here of last year's panel. We had one individual who had been married long term, one individual who was engaged, a couple who was in a relationship for about 4 months, and two individuals who were just single but dating. And so our delegates really were able to conceptualize what it might look like to have a relationship as an individual with a disability, and also what different stages of relationships look like. And all of our panels are interactive. So our campers can ask questions, they can have conversations with our panelists, and really have that dynamic interaction about what it means to be a young person with a disability navigating the dating scene or looking to have that long-term relationship. Because relationships are complicated when you're non-disabled, and then you throw in disability and it just makes it a ton more interesting. And so we really believed in providing that resource to our campers. So another part about YLF is we focus on celebrating our delegates. We want them to feel valued, we want them to feel celebrated, and we want to recognize what a big achievement YLF is for them. Like I mentioned earlier, YLF is often the first time they're away from home, away from family, or even just in a new environment. And while experiencing all these new things, they also learn how to advocate for themselves and others. And that's huge. That's such a big accomplishment. And so we at the end of camp have a big graduation ceremony. You can see this photo from last year's graduation ceremony about how excited everyone was to graduate. And we make it a really big deal. Family is invited to come attend the ceremony. We have certificates signed by the governor. And it really just ends up being a celebration of our delegates, how amazing they are as individuals, and the achievement that they just completed. Another highlight of camp is our dance. We have like a prom style dance where it's an opportunity for our campers just to have fun. We have a DJ, we have a photo booth. Last year we had a cotton candy machine, which was a hit. And it's an opportunity for everyone really just to let loose. Because at camp we do cover a lot of, serious topics, what it's like to, be an adult with a disability. We have like a community resource fair type event where, agencies come in from the community and provide resources to our delegates. We talk about relationships, legislative advocacy. That's all serious stuff. So we need some time to let loose, have fun, and let our campers just be teenagers. And the dance, definitely one of the highlights of YLF. I have this quote from Stephen Brown that I think really embodies the concept of YLF. And he says, for years, we've discussed integration like it was our business to fit into mainstream society. As we become more aware of our unique gifts, some of us have also become more convinced that this is a backwards perspective. It's absolutely not our job to fit into mainstream society. Rather, it's our destiny to demonstrate to mainstream society that it's to their benefit to figure out that we come attached to our wheelchairs, our ventilators, our canes, our hearing aids. And to receive the benefit of our knowledge and experience, mainstream society needs to figure out not how we fit in, but how we can be of benefit exactly the way we are. And with YLF, we really encourage our campers to go out into the world as themselves. Because there are unique gifts that come along with disability. Obviously it's not always positive, but there are some amazing, amazing things that you learn and amazing experiences that you acquire. And it really helps others when you can share that experience. And so when we look at how YLF functions and how, disability is naturalized, and when disability is naturalized, accommodations become just a part of the natural social fabric, it really demonstrates how, acceptance really encourages support of one another. And so when we empower our delegates to advocate for themselves and be prideful as a person with a disability, we're also encouraging them to go out into the broader community and show others how to normalize disability, right? And show others what an asset they are, and how disability doesn't necessarily have to be this big, scary thing, but rather just a part of human diversity and something that can lend knowledge. So I wanted to share that quote because I think it's beautiful. So how can you get involved in YLF? Right now, our staff applications are open. They will be open until February 3rd, and I will share that link in the chat after I conclude the presentation. Please spread the word about YLF to any youth with disabilities you might know. We're going to be recruiting delegates next month, and we would love, love, love to see your youth at our forum. And please follow us on social media. Keep up to date on everything YLF. We'll post about applications. We'll post about more information about what YLF is and how we function. We'll highlight previous alumni and their achievements. It really is just a fun thing to be engaged with. So YLF really is a life-changing experience for those who attend. Often it's the first time our campers see that they too can live an empowered life as a person with a disability. And there's really a certain magic to that. But we need our community support to create that magic. So that's where you can come in and really help lend that support. Here is all of my contact information and also our social media handles if you want to check us out on social media. And I'd also be happy to answer any questions at this point in time if anyone has any.
Thank you, Lillian, for that wonderful information. It was very enlightening. I also learned a lot about the program. I was like actually watching the council meeting when they voted on it. And also I followed the Facebook page. So just to see the amazing time that you guys had your first year was just great. And we had a conversation earlier and I mentioned that I knew one of the participants last year. So it's just great to see the amazing things that you're doing and also that Family Separate Families of Arcadia is doing with this awesome program.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you inviting me to come speak today.
So if we do have any questions, please put them in the chat. Right now, I don't see any. I just see a lot of thank you questions. Thank you for the information. I do have a question. So in case you get a participant or a delegate that's there, and like you said, for most of them, it's their first time away at home. And so how do you handle a delegate that may get homesick?
We really just support them through it. We recognize that it's difficult and we recognize that it's a really new, scary experience. But we also try to encourage them to see that maybe it's going to be a positive experience, that maybe they'll make new friends, maybe they'll meet really cool adults with disabilities, maybe they'll have a lot of fun at our dance. We really try to shift that focus to how exciting the new experiences are, while also validating those scared feelings. Um, we had some staff members last year who were moms, and they did an incredible job of stepping in and supporting our delegates. So it really is just about also choosing the right staff members to support based on the situation.
Thank you. And I don't see any questions in the chat, so I guess that means that you did an awesome job at explaining everything.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Oh,
Someone said, can you talk a little bit more about what's the requirement for a staff member?
absolutely. So our staff really is there to serve as a support to our delegates, um, and to really help facilitate the experience of YLF. And so a lot of our staff role is encouragement, helping facilitate sometimes some of the social interaction, and also making sure everyone is where they need to be as well. Because we do really want to focus on making sure we end the week with as many campers as we started the week with. When we're looking at, and I'm joking, we have never lost a camper. I'm kidding. But whenever we look at staff, we really want to prioritize individuals who have a background in disability, whether that be professional experience, whether that be someone who has a family member with a disability, or someone who's a person with a disability. And so in my slideshow, I did say that about 50% of our staff are people with disabilities. Normally, we try to exceed that goal. And so last year, about 75% of our staff were folks with disabilities. And so we're gonna attempt to match that this year as well. But our staff, like I mentioned, really serves as a support role to our campers throughout the experience.
Okay. So I wish I could have saw a video from the dance. That's what I wish I could have saw that. I'm pretty sure they had an awesome time. I don't see any more questions in the chat. It says, what is the staff to camper ratio? But I think you said that already. Is it 1-to-1, 1-on-1?
Yeah, so we have a one-to-one staff to camper ratio. That does not include our medical staff. So we also have two registered nurses who are there for the duration of the forum. And our staff also stays 24/7 on the campus with our campers to make sure that everyone has the support and supervision that they need.
Okay, and I also wanted to mention that this webinar is going to be posted on our YouTube channel later today. So you can find us on YouTube at Families Helping Families Region 7. In case you joined us late, or in case you just want to go back and watch it, or refer a parent or a youth to go back and watch it, it can be found on our YouTube channel. So I think that is it. So I'm going to give you guys some time back in your day. I want to thank you again, Miss DeJean, for coming out and doing this webinar for us and giving us the information. I encourage everyone at the end, evaluation will pop up. So if you could please fill out that evaluation for us and let us know how we did, we really appreciate it. And until our next webinar, we'll see you later.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.